everyone. I'm Elizabeth Hines, and welcome to Coast Connections. Well, we're well over a year into this global pandemic, and most of us are sort of filled up to our ears with screen time and Zoom calls. However, our next guest received a very special Zoom call from Her Majesty the Queen for a very prestigious and honorable award that he received recently. Please welcome Dr. Steve Beerman.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Hi, Dr. Beerman. How are you?
I'm very well.
Good. You look very well. Were you just out for a swim?
No. Although I do try and stay healthy, that wasn't what I was doing this morning.
There you go. And I just want to add that that award that you got was for your international and national efforts for addressing the very prominent public health issue of preventable drownings.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk a little bit more about drowning further into the episode, but right now I just want to talk to you about that incredible Zoom call that you received from Her Majesty and that you participated in. How did that all happen? Just let's back up the train a bit here. You were awarded this King Edward VII medallion and cup in February of 2020, I believe it was. Take us back to then.
So I received a letter from the Royal Lifesaving Society, which is a Commonwealth organization, telling me that I was the recipient of this honor, which is provided every 2 years for somebody with lifetime achievements in the promotion and moving forward the effort for drowning prevention globally. And so that was fantastic to receive, humbling. That was about the time the pandemic was making travel difficult. So I have been to previous presentations of this award at Buckingham Palace and realized that this might be difficult with the pandemic going on. And so I had suggested to both the staff at Buckingham Palace as well as the Royal Lifesaving Society people that we consider doing this virtually. They made that proposal and it was accepted. Then it was a case of finding a time and a day that would work for everybody, and then sort of setting up a presentation opportunity. And so the date was chosen to be in early May, and it was actually the 6th of May. And it was important for all of us that we not just acknowledge my award, but that we put that in the context of other efforts in drowning prevention and resuscitation that were going on around the world, and that we knew that the Queen had participated as the first recipient of what was then called a Junior Resuscitation Award of the Royal Lifesaving Society when she was 14 in the year 1939.
Wow.
And we had some photos of this, and we thought that we would try and engage some recollection on her part in what that was like. And so 2 youth were involved in the presentation, and both of them had received commendation awards for resuscitation. And this is an award that is presented around the world for people under the age of 18. And so both of these youth had been participants in that. And so the date was selected, the program was set up. There were 2 practice sessions, the first being one of technology and making sure that the technology worked for a video conference of this nature. So these were set up by the Royal Household staff and support system. And then the day before the actual presentation, we had a run through of the way this might unfold, and a so-called dress rehearsal without the dress. And then on the 6th of May, at I think 8 o'clock in the morning was our time, was when we did this, 4 p.m. In the UK. The Queen was in Windsor Castle, and we were on the connection for about 15 or 20 minutes before she sat down. When the screens came on for the full event, she was one of the squares on my screen, and the conversation began.
What a special moment. What a very special moment to have her on the screen with you. Dr. Beerman, what kind of protocols or instructions were you given in terms of interacting with her during that call?
Well, we had questioned, because I had had some previous experience with the protocol with royal family members. We clarified in advance that we weren't to change our position. We weren't to stand up or bow or curtsy or alter our position. We had some conversation about the cup was quite large as to how this would actually be dealt with, and it was agreed that the cup would sit on a table that would be visible in one of the shots on the screen but wouldn't move and wouldn't be actually touched. It was agreed that I would show the so-called keeper medal, the medal that I actually had in my possession, and so we did that. We were, as anybody who speaks with members of the royal family, when you speak to members of the royal family, you are addressing them, despite the fact that there might be other people in the room, and in this case on the virtual call. You are really talking directly to them, and the first time you address them, she is Your Majesty, and after that it's ma'am. We were coached to speak slowly and allow her opportunities to interject seems harsh, but to make comment or to ask questions. It wasn't a time for a speech of some kind. And so it really was a conversation. She was very engaged in the conversation. She was very interested in the people and the work that we've all been doing to try and improve drowning and improve resuscitation around the world. And we chatted about that. And she did bring up her recollection of the time when she was 14 or thereabouts. And she giggled a bit about the fact that that was a long time ago, because she is now 95. And but she did remember that she had to work hard to achieve that, and that she was very proud to wear the badge that was provided to her on her bathing suit.
That's such a wonderful backstory to this. It's just so beautiful. What I was struck by, Dr. Beerman, is how well the Queen looks. Like, she looks so vibrant. As you say, she's 95. She just lost her husband of 73 years, not long before that Zoom call happened. And that picture of her there at Windsor Castle that we have, which was provided by Buckingham Palace, just shows her so strong and radiant and still full of life.
Yes, the remarkable features about the event were, her vitality and her graciousness, her ongoing willingness to serve. And that here we were a few weeks following the death of her husband, and she was essentially back at work, honoring people throughout the Commonwealth for their good work. And so I think all of those were remarkable parts of that encounter.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. What a special time for you and the others that participated on the call. And we've got a couple websites that we'll be showing throughout the interview where people can go and actually see the whole YouTube Zoom call. I think it's about 7 or 8 minutes long. But as you say, your chat with her is about 20 minutes, and they took a clip of that to make public. So lucky you. But Dr. Beerman, this wasn't your first time at the palace, as you mentioned, you alluded to earlier. I think you said this was your 11th presentation connected with the Royal Lifesaving Society with the Commonwealth. And we have a photo here of you back in 1991, I believe, with the society members and Her Majesty. And that's you on the top row, third from the left, the right, the left. There you are, a much younger version of yourself, but still looking very vibrant. And I was struck by this picture because it's all men. It was a different time then too, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
And it was primarily older men. I was I jokingly say that the Queen and I were the youngest two people in this photograph. But actually there is a woman on the far side, on the opposite side at the back from me, who is the High Commissioner for New Zealand, who was participating in that particular event.
Mm-hmm. And another photo we have of you at Buckingham Palace greeting the Queen in 1996, Dr. Beerman. What were you there for that time?
I was actually there for an acknowledgement of the Royal Lifesaving Society's accomplishments, but also a previous recipient of this King Edward VII Cup received that cup on that particular occasion. And so I was there for the presentation of that event.
When I asked you before the show if I should call you Dr. Stephen Beerman or Dr. Steve Beerman, tell me what your response was.
Well, my response was that the only people who regularly and always call me Stephen are my mother and the Queen.
Not many people can say that, but you are a frequent flyer there at the palace with your work with the Royal Lifesaving Society. Now you have the medal there, the King Edward VII medallion. Let's just have a peek at that in the lovely presentation box. There we go. And that's the front of the medallion. And also we'll show a picture on the back, which has your name and the laurel leaves. It's a beautiful medal. And at some point, you'll be able to go back to the palace to see the actual cup with your name on it. That'll be a very special trip for you as well. Now, this cup dates back to 1891 when King Edward VII first presented it. And I think you mentioned that it went through sort of mothball during the First or Second World Wars and then came back into use recently. Tell us a little bit about the background on that.
Well, King Edward VII was the first patron of the Royal Lifesaving Society after its creation in 1891. And so that's where this originated. And the cup in those days, in the early use of this cup, was for resuscitation and life-saving team championships in the UK. So schools and communities would compete for this cup, showing excellence in their water-related rescue resuscitation work. When the First World War began, those kinds of activities stopped, and the cup sat in storage, I presume, and not used for a long time until the early 1980s. And in the early 1980s, it was repurposed to acknowledge lifetime achievement in drowning prevention and life-saving. And so there's been 11 previous recipients of this of cup prior to myself. And at one point it was presented every 5 years. That's more recently been reduced to every 2 years. And so I am a very honored recipient of this acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm. You're very honored and well-deserved for your global action on the issue of drowning. Let's talk a little bit about that whole issue, Dr. Beerman. On average, there's about 235,000 people that die each year around the world from preventable drownings. And about 2.5 million are dying and had died in the last decade due to drowning. And you've come up with some very cost-effective and easily implemented measures to help countries around the world reduce this risk.
So yes, the global estimates of mortality from drowning are staggeringly tragic, and they're disproportionately burdening children and people in low and middle income countries. So 90% of the drowning in the world happens in low and middle income countries, and only 10% is occurring in high income countries. And in the low and middle income environment, there is some demographic burdens that are concerning in that Southeast Asia, where the majority of the children of the world live, drowning is a very prevalent cause of mortality, and it exceeds that of infectious disease and infant mortality from other causes, and is a leading cause of death in children in most countries of the world. So it was quite important that we explore opportunities for providing preventative intervention that would be low cost and very applicable in low income countries and in low income socioeconomic settings. And so a spectrum of interventional options have been explored over the past 30 years that might meet this need and reduce the drowning burden globally. Mm-hmm. They include simple things like capping wells and preventing children from access to risk scenarios around water. survival swimming, as we call it, or basic swim skill training, we know is a very significant immunization against drowning. And so children who have swim skills are less likely to have drowning events and less likely to die in those drowning events than those who do not. So teaching basic swimming skills to all the children of the planet is one of our objectives. Encouraging and facilitating adult supervision with daycare, early school start is something we advocate for. So in many countries of the world that don't have such a structured educational system and medical system like we do, we encourage the governments of those countries to actually start children in supervised settings at an early age. And it reduces drowning as well as other related injury, misadventures, and deaths. The equipping communities and people in communities with basic rescue and resuscitation skills is also one of the simple low-cost interventions. So it's not getting better equipment or electronic surveillance. It's very simple, low-cost interventions that make the biggest difference. And there is a global effort to encourage all the parents and communities of the world to understand this tragic burden and do things to limit its continuation.
Mm-hmm. And recently, the UN declared drowning prevention as a what was the designation they gave it? And they've also declared a day in July as the Global Drowning Awareness Day.
So on April the 28th of 2021, just a few weeks ago, the most exciting day in my recent past, despite this presentational event, was the UN General Assembly declared a UN resolution on drowning prevention, which is addressed to all UN member states. It had one of the largest co-sponsorships of any UN resolution that's come to the floor of the UN General Assembly in recent years. And is the first UN resolution on drowning prevention. It outlines some alignment with existing UN programs in disaster reduction, in climate change issues that affect drowning, which we realize when there's increased extreme weather events, which is occurring because of climate change, that this increases drowning risk. Disasters and the management and prevention of loss of life in those disasters is a linked UN agenda. There's some significant UN agendas around migration and people crossing bodies of water to escape from one country to another or to obtain entry into another country, and this is another huge issue. There are clauses within the UN resolution that each member state or country is advised and voluntarily encouraged to address. And it includes providing simple, low-cost drowning prevention solutions to all the communities and children of the world. And it did declare that forevermore, July the 25th will be World Drowning Prevention Day. And so this year, 2021, will be the first of the UN's World Drowning Prevention Days. And that event will be coordinated by the World Health Organization, and NGOs and advocates within countries will quickly get on board with that. And you will see activities in Canada on that day associated with that designation.
Well, congratulations to you, because I know that you were also behind that global effort, and it's a wonderful achievement to see it reach this level of prominence on the globe. Back here in Canada, I think May to September are the chief months for unintentional drownings. And what are some of the safety tips that we can look to implement here with ourselves and with our children? What are some of the things that we can make sure that we're doing if we're out on the water or near water?
So constant attention to children, especially very, very young children, and close adult or guardian supervision. And we really mean close, so within arm's length. And if you're not within arm's length, even for things like bathtubs and bathing and outdoor ponds that you might have in your backyard during the summer season, adult supervision, guardian supervision needs to be within arm's length and quickly available. So the cell phones need to go away. Answering the phone by going into the house and dealing with a chore is not an option when there's kids in and around water scenarios. So supervision, adult supervision, and guardian supervision is a very, very important strategy that's effective in Canada. All children in Canada should have basic survival swimming skills, which is sounds simple, but lots and lots of children in Canada do not have this skill. And so in the UN resolution, the recommendation is that this be embedded in the school system so that it's universal, so that all children in Canada get exposed to the transfer of those skills and that they can achieve those skills. And they're pretty simple, and they don't involve going to the Olympics. They really involve keeping yourself above water if you got into an urgent and difficult or challenging situation, and being able to propel yourself even a short distance in any way possible in the water. Mm-hmm. The use of life jackets, and particularly the wearing of life jackets. So we have some interesting challenges in Canada around life jacket use, where it is frequently legislated. In most environments, it's legislated that there must be life jackets on small craft and on vessels. But in very few of those situations is the wearing of the life jacket the requirement. And we know that in small craft under 5.5 meters, children involved in craft activities, things like kayaking, canoeing, stand-up paddleboarding, that if there is a misadventure and the person has some trauma to their head, they will not actually be able to support themselves without their life jacket on and properly worn. And so wearing of life jackets in situations like that for everybody in a boat who's under 5.5 meters, for people who are on personal paddled craft, they need to be wearing life jackets, and the life jacket industry has made that increasingly easier with easy, low intrusion life jacket wear options available to everybody today. So the final one that I would mention is that every family should have members of their family who are skilled in CPR, in the resuscitation of somebody who needs resuscitation. And that's not just for drowning, but for our own wellness and our rescue from difficult situations that might arise. And so every family should have a member in the family that has training in CPR. So I think with those basic things, we would reduce the drowning rates in Canada considerably.
Very, very good points. And I also just want to add too that if you're out on the water on, boating, kayaking, paddleboarding, alcohol and those activities do not mix at all. So we have to be very cognizant of making sure that that doesn't happen out on the water or near the water.
Thank you for making that very important point. And it's nowadays we talk in terms of substances, and you need your mind to be working well when you're on or about the water. And anything that might be disrupting that should be not a part of the process.
Thank you. And you have a very long history with swimming and lifeguarding, and you grew up in Powell River here on Vancouver Island, and you were instrumental in getting a $90,000 swimming pool built there for the local community with your youth leadership that you demonstrated at that point in your life. Through some partnerships with Macmillan Bloedel and then some community fundraising for the other $45,000. And I also want to add, because I think our viewers will find this very interesting, as a young 17, 18-year-old man, there in Powell River, you invited then Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau to come up to Powell River with René Lévesque, the then Premier of Quebec, to have a debate in your high school auditorium, followed by a community event. And I just think your leadership skills have been there from a very young age, Dr. Beerman. And now you're honored by Her Majesty the Queen for your international and global leadership. And I just think it's so wonderful that you have that leadership, skills embedded in you like that. So.
Well, thank you for that. Those are two fascinating parts of my history and background. But I think that at times like this, it's important for me to acknowledge the people that gave me those opportunities.
Yes.
And I I was given opportunities in leadership at an early age, both inside of this drowning prevention, life-saving world, but also outside of that. And those were very formative. They were very developmental. And so I do think that we should continue to provide youth with great leadership development opportunities, with mentorship, with support to not only make decisions, but to support the implementation of those decisions, and to learn about strategic planning and learning about creating evidence to bridge gaps where we need further development and further evidence. So I certainly had those opportunities, and I'm very grateful for that. I also have done most of these things voluntarily, and even though I have a significant educational background, formal educational background, many of the most important things that I have utilized in my life, I learned through my volunteer engagement. So I learned a lot of skills in my voluntary roles that were applicable to my professional development and my professional work.
Well, you're a wonderful role model here in our own community and now across the globe. And I just want to mention, too, you've recently retired from your clinical practice as a family doctor after 34 years. And we just want to wish you a very happy, and I know it'll be a busy, retirement. And any closing thoughts from you just before we wrap up here, Dr. Beerman?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for those kind words and those thoughts. I hope that all the people who have the opportunity to view this will have a safe and happy and fun summer. And please be aware that the risks of the water are sometimes unexpected, and you need to be prepared to make sure that drowning is not part of your summer activity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beerman. And may I say, God save the Queen, and Godspeed to you, dear sir, for all the work that you're doing to help keep us safe out there. And thank you to our viewers for watching us today here on Coast Connections. I'm Elizabeth Hines, and we've been speaking with Dr. Stephen Beerman. We'll see you next time on Coast Connections.